Pope Francis and leaders of other world religions have said no to war and vowed to oppose terrorism in God's name. The declaration came at the end of a three-day meeting held in Assisi, home of St. Francis, the patron saint of peace. Around 500 representatives of numerous faiths, including Christianity, Islam and Judaism, attended discussions on how their members could better promote peace and reconciliation.
U.S. President Barack Obama delivered his final speech at the UN Tuesday during the annual General Assembly. In his last appearance, Obama also addressed the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and called on Israel to end the occupation.
And surely Israelis and Palestinians will be better off if Palestinians reject incitement and recognize the legitimacy of Israel, but Israel recognizes that it cannot permanently occupy and settle Palestinian land.
Also in his last speech at the annual UN General Assembly, Secretary General Ban Ki-moon addressed the political stalemate between Israel and the Palestinian Authority.
Yet the prospects for a two-state solution are being lowered by the day. It pains me that this past decade has been 10 years lost to peace. This is madness, denying Palestinians their freedom and rightful future, and pushing Israel further from its vision of a Jewish democracy towards greater global isolation.
In his final speech to the UN General Assembly, President Obama has urged wealthy nations to do more to help refugees. Calling on leaders to open their hearts, Obama stressed that it was only through cooperation that the world's greatest challenges could be addressed.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have to imagine what it would be like for our family, for our children, if the unspeakable happened to us. And we should all understand that ultimately our world will be more secure if we are prepared to help those in need.
George Soros is preparing an investment of $500 million to help migrants and refugees. The billionaire investor announced his philanthropic effort comes in response to President Obama's Call to Action initiative. The Obama administration has called upon U.S. companies to help ease the migrant crisis in the Mediterranean. The founder of Open Society Foundations, Soros plans to work closely with the UN to help guide his investment. Soros added he will work with the UN's High Commissioner for Refugees and the International Rescue Committee.
You could call it lunch shaming. Some kids in a local district are apparently being denied hot lunches after a new policy went into effect.
A cafeteria employee quit because of it, and tonight she's speaking out.
She spent 2 years working in the cafeteria at Wylandville Elementary, but last Thursday, Stacy Koltiska resigned after she had to take away hot meals from 2 children.
His eyes welled up with tears. I mean, I'll never forget his name, the look on his face.
The new policy at Canon McMillan passed over the summer. In grades K through 6, the hot meal item will be replaced by a sandwich if $25 or more is owed to the district for lunches. For older kids, they will receive no lunch if the debt is $25.
How long after your first day, the kids' first day back, did you actually have to enforce this?
The very first week of school on Friday.
After it happened a second time, she posted her experience on Facebook. It has been shared over 2,600 times. She says the children are the ones who are humiliated and embarrassed in the process.
The woman I work with, she was trying to get my attention, but I didn't see it because we're serving so many kids, to tell me before I gave him the chicken that he owed money to give him the cheese. But it was too late. He already had his tray.
Koltiska says due to other policies, she had to then throw away the hot lunch after taking it from the child. The district says parents were notified in an email or by letter in August before the school year. Superintendent Matthew Daniels says this is about collecting money owed, noting that parents are notified weekly of lunch balances, and says there has never been the intent with the adoption of this policy to shame or embarrass a child.
I'm not saying the parents shouldn't be held accountable, but I think there has to be a better way than involving the child.
A local teacher is defending his decision to stand on an American flag to teach his class a lesson.
Well, this all came about during a history lesson on who has access to free speech, but some parents and students say the teacher, Lee Francis, went much too far. The picture taken by a student shows honors history teacher Lee Francis giving a lesson on the First Amendment after holding up an American flag, asking students for a lighter or scissors.
And I put the flag on the ground and I take 2 steps with my right foot and I said, this is an example of freedom of speech. As soon as the flag hits the ground and I step on it, 2 students got up and left immediately with no word, no disruption at all. Got up and left. I assumed that something happened. One student came to where I am and took the flag from me.
Francis, who has relatives in the military, says he didn't intend to offend students, but rather drive home the Supreme Court's definition of free speech, as noted in the case Texas versus Johnson.
This case says speech is something other than what is spoken.
I was just appalled. Melissa Ramos, who has a daughter at the school and a son stationed at Fort Bragg, was among the many parents furious over the demonstration and demanding Francis be fired.
Just personally, as a military family, to have someone do that. Thank goodness that she wasn't in that class because of our personal experiences with having friends not come home.
In a statement, Cumberland County School Superintendent Dr. Frank Till said, quote, clearly there are other ways to teach First Amendment rights without desecrating the flag, and that the incident is under investigation.
I think he's right, absolutely, that there could be other ways to teach the subject. But in the same vein, the way that I taught it can't necessarily be wrong.
New student housing coming to San Francisco State University. This housing is designed for African American students and culture.
Cell phone video captured a racially charged encounter on SF State's campus last spring. An African American woman upset and getting physical with a white man about his dreads.
You're saying that I can't have a hairstyle because of your culture? Yeah.
Now campus officials are responding to demands from the Black Student Union, and they're planning on creating a new space on campus where students can safely live and talk about issues affecting African Americans.
I want to be proactively responding to some of the issues that have been raised by the Black Lives Matter movement, and we want to work with our student leaders in the Black Student Union and in other students of color organizations to make sure that our living and learning community here is inclusive.
SF State already has several dorm floors dedicated to common interests. One for science and tech, another for business, and another for civil and community engagement. This newest theme, though, would be specific around race and culture. They're calling it an Afro-themed dorm floor.
And I definitely think it's a good thing if people want to learn more about the culture, and especially with like the Black Lives Matter movement, if that's incorporated into it, I think that's definitely a good thing.
Cal State LA has already started offering housing specifically for Black students. Critics of the idea say it could lead to self-segregation.
I think we need to have a united dorms and have different cultures be together and just come as a group.
But university officials say the Afro-themed dorm floor would be open to anyone of any race who wants to live there.
It's okay because everyone is allowed. It's not like only African Americans are okay to live in that floor.
Across 5 southern states, there are more reports of gas stations running empty, spiking prices, and drivers lining up to fill up. The gasoline pipeline spill in Alabama has disrupted supplies in Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee, and the Carolinas.
I am on empty. Look, see? Look. Empty, yellow light.
So have you been driving around looking for gas at this point?
This is my 4th gas station.
I drive about 500 miles a week as a wine sales rep, so gas is kind of important for my job. So I'm just filling up because I saw the truck here.
Tanker trucks are bringing gas in the pipeline's place, with drivers quickly lining up when they see one reach a station.
I guess I lucked out. I really did. Somebody was watching over me because I don't know. I wouldn't have been able to make it home.
AAA says the average price for a gallon of gas in North Carolina went up 11 cents since last week. Higher prices are also reported in Tennessee, South Carolina, and Georgia.
I paid $2.40 yesterday.
I had to pay $2.59 a gallon, so I just went ahead and filled it up.
Some drivers say they're buying as much gas as they can when they can.
I had to get some gas for an extra week because they said it might be 2 weeks, so I'm scared.
Georgia's governor issued an executive order on Monday to prevent price gouging.
On Monday, health officials in the Dominican Republic expressed concern over the Mayaro virus, a mosquito-borne illness recently identified in a patient in neighboring Haiti. The virus's symptoms include chills, malaise, headache, stomach and joint pains, and is transmitted by the same Aedes aegypti mosquito that carries Zika, dengue, yellow fever, and chikungunya. In a year in which Zika became a household word, the discovery of this new rare virus 600 miles from Miami is cause for concern. University of Florida virologist John Lednicki, who identified the illness, says it's still too early to say how many other people might be infected or whether the mosquito-borne virus will make it to the States. Discovered in Trinidad in 1974, Mayaro is still somewhat of a mystery. The worst outbreak ever recorded occurred in Venezuela in 2000, but the disease has also been detected in Bolivia, Brazil, Colombia, Peru, Guyana, and Suriname. And according to Lednicki, the virus shouldn't be shrugged off. We need to be proactive and stay on top of this thing.
It seemed like a bizarre idea at the time, but now, a year later, officials say that California's shade balls have been a success. They were deployed in an attempt to protect the Los Angeles reservoir. Authorities were concerned about evaporation in the 175-acre reservoir, and they wanted to protect it from algae blooms, dust, as well as birds. But trying to cover the reservoir would certainly have been quite expensive, and it would have cost more than $300 million to build the two covers and a dam that would be needed. So instead, they came up with an ingenious solution, dumping enough of those floating plastic balls into the reservoir to cover it. Truckloads were poured in. There were actually 95 million of them, and they actually ended up only costing 36 cents a piece. So the cost total was $34.5 million. And now there hasn't been much evaporated in the reservoir, and the water is free of algae, dust, and birds.
U.S. scientists are warning that unless action is taken immediately, there will be no wild fish left to eat from the world's oceans by 2050. They say it's part of a bigger threat facing all marine life. The decline is unprecedented, and the researchers say it's likely caused by overfishing and man-made pollution.
Pistachios were once flourishing across this land in southeastern Iran, but now all you can see are long dead pistachio trees, bleached white by the sun. Years of overfarming have exhausted underground water reserves. What's left is now salty and kills off the trees. Droughts and uncontrolled illegal pumps have led to Iran losing what was once one of the world's most sophisticated irrigation systems. The United Nations says Iran is now considered water scarce, and the government is now offering financial incentives to farmers to encourage them to conserve water. Farmers say, although government help has come a little late, it is happening. But with decades of uncontrolled farming and climate change, it will take years before Iran sees the return of its lush green pistachio trees.
North Korea may be readying for yet another nuclear test at an unused underground tunnel at its Punggye-ri test site. Multiple sources within the South Korean government said Wednesday that a cover had been set up at the site's second and third underground tunnel. The covers were set up even before the regime's fifth nuclear test on September 9th. Military and intelligence authorities are said to be keeping a close eye on any further activity that could suggest an imminent test. The U.S.-based North Korea monitoring website 38 North says a cover at the second tunnel was not removed after this month's test, but it has been revealed for the first time that a cover was set up at the unused third tunnel. With Pyongyang claiming this week that it successfully tested a rocket engine for a geostationary satellite, South Korean and U.S. military and intelligence authorities are strengthening their monitoring of North Korea.
The United States will temporarily deploy 2 B-1B bombers to South Korea on Wednesday as a show of force against North Korea's nuclear missile provocations. An informed source told Seoul-based Yonhap News Agency that the move is aimed at reaffirming Washington's commitment to providing South Korea with extended deterrence amid Pyongyang's continual threats. The source said the 2 B-1Bs from Andersen Air Force Base in Guam will land at Osan Air Base located south of Seoul. The US sent 2 B-1Bs to South Korea last week, but they only flew over the peninsula before returning to Guam. No word yet on how long the US bombers will stay in South Korea.
Indian and Pakistani forces exchanged fire across their de facto border dividing the disputed Kashmir region as tensions continue to ratchet up between the two neighbors. The Indian Army has accused Pakistani soldiers of firing bullets at an Indian military position from across the border. It called the incident a violation of the 2003 ceasefire agreement. It said the violation occurred near the town of Uri. However, the Pakistani military sources have dismissed the allegation as baseless. Indian troops are also said to have killed at least 8 people trying to sneak across the border. The violence comes just 2 days after the deadly raid on an Indian Army base in Uri, which New Delhi blamed on militants from Pakistan. Nearly 20 soldiers were killed in Sunday's attack. The incident increased hostility between the two nuclear-armed rivals.
All of our information indicates clearly that this was an airstrike. That means there only could have been 2 entities responsible, either the Syrian regime or the Russian government. In any event, we hold the Russian government responsible for airstrikes in this space.
Russia says drone surveillance footage showed a militant pickup truck carrying a large caliber weapon had used the Red Crescent fleet for cover. Washington blames either Russian or Syrian warplanes. However, Moscow has questioned whether the attack was an airstrike at all. Russia says its footage suggests the Red Crescent truck caught fire as militants staged an offensive.
Perfectly preserved 82-year-old time capsule left behind at a training school by the Nazis has been unearthed in Poland. Items including photographs of Adolf Hitler, 2 copies of Mein Kampf, documents from Nazi Germany, newspapers, a Nazi badge, coins, letters, and promotional items about the town were all found in excellent condition inside a black cylinder buried in a Polish town. The artifacts inside the capsule are thought to date back to around 1934. Archaeologists had to cut through various obstacles, including concrete and German mines, to reach the capsule, which they opened using a chainsaw. They apparently knew the capsule was buried beneath the school building, but had been unable to get to it until now. The building was used by the Nazis to train future leaders when the town was part of Germany, but it's now used by the Polish army.
A glimpse into the future of mobile banking. This bank in South Korea uses iris scanning technology to confirm a client's identity. There's no need to type in passwords, and you can log into your account with your smartphone.
We have started to offer a service that allows users to transfer money using just iris authentication, which is safer and more convenient.
Smartphone users in Seoul had mixed views.
I would use it only after they prove that it's safe.
Fingerprint authentication is already commonly used, but I think iris authentication is more appropriate for finance transactions that require a higher level of security.
But getting all banks to adopt this type of technology could still be a challenge.
Iris scanning is more secure than other security mechanisms, but the finance market is extremely conservative. For such a conservative society to adopt iris recognition just because it is better will not be an easy decision.
For people without smartphones, the bank has installed ATMs with built-in iris scanners. Since its launch earlier this year, the bank says around 1,000 people have registered their iris data with their ATM, and more than 10,000 have registered using their smartphones. Samsung is also currently in talks with several banks in the US about integrating its scanner into their mobile banking applications. There are also rumors that next year's Apple iPhone could include an iris scanning feature. As a result, some market analysts predict that by 2020, 1 in every 10 smartphones will be equipped with iris scanning hardware.